Okay, I think we're recording now. Yeah, so that'd be really neat to do the review of Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. You know, to get the money to watch that, I mean, I was too young to have a job back then, obviously. So I asked my dad, hey, could I have 20 bucks? Me and Donnie, who's my best friend at the time, me and Donnie want to go down to the movie theater and watch a movie. And he asked me, well, which movie are you going to watch? And I'm like, I didn't want to tell him Star Trek. I don't know why, but I thought it was like too dorky. So I told him we were going to go watch JFK. And so, yeah, he gave me 20 bucks and that got us a pizza and a couple of movie tickets. And I was really hoping that he wouldn't ask me about how JFK was.
Back and to the left. I still have never seen that all the way through. It's like an incomprehensibly impossible movie to sit through. I should try it again for the 30th anniversary. But
right.
Hello and welcome to the 19th episode of Next Generation's First Generation's fourth season, where we cover each episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation on the 30th anniversary of its release. This week we are looking at the 19th episode of season 4, Qpid, which aired on April 20th, 1991, and we are down to the wire. We are literally, it is April 18th, 2021 right now as you're hearing us talk. And when we left you at the end of the Nth Degree, it was February. And we were talking about the world opening up again. Sascha and I were talking about getting together in October at the old Kent Kentley Studios. Kent Kentley Studios has moved. It is no longer next to a fire station. A car just drove past, and I bet you couldn't hear it on your whatever device you're listening to. But I have rambled quite a bit. Sascha, my co-host, is here with me. This is Patrick Delmore speaking. Here's Sascha.
Well, hello there, Patrick. Nice to hear your lovely voice again. Well, I'm going to miss the Seattle Police Department giving commentary on our movies and episodes. Maybe we could kind of do a Ding Dong Dash one of these days where, you know, we'll call in a code for your new apartment and they can come in and sit down with some popcorn and watch along. I'm sure that will go over swimmingly.
Within throwing distance of the chops, so...
I hate to sound like a contrarian. This is actually the 20th episode of season 4. And
holy smoke.
I know, right? And it came out on the 22nd. So that's okay.
Wow.
I know, but that's all right. So now the next error you get has to be a third error somehow. So you got 1 day wrong for the first, 2 days wrong for the second. So for the third day, I'm wondering what the big mistake's going to be there. I hope you make it funny.
I hope I do too.
Yeah. Okay. So what do we got going on here? Is this one of those Q is magic and we fall in love episode?
The before I watched this, I sat or I didn't sit. I was at work listening to it. To what those that have gone before us, namely Greatest Generation, had to say about this episode. They hate this episode. I disagree with them. But Star Trek Picard did not exist yet when they recorded their thoughts on it. And now that it does, I think that it puts this story in a whole new context. But we'll get to that in a few minutes, because it is time to sync up whatever player you have for our countdown of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
And we're playing. There's the Enterprise fading in. We have a stardate going on.
Aren't we glad they got rid of stardates recently? They will just now say what the actual year was.
Yeah. Stardates never seem to make quite much sense to me. And on top of that, someone would be able to say the date in a stardate, like, oh, that's 3 weeks from now or something like that. And it would just blow my mind. You might as well say, oh, it's 3 bean pods 0.257 cars, and that's a date. I'm like, huh? What? I don't know.
Well, this is kind of a redo of an episode that I think we all agreed when we recorded that failed, which was Captain's Holiday.
Yes.
Where Picard began in a similar situation, stressed out about something that he needed to do, and Troy came in and said, you should go on a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
This time, Troy just tells him he needs to relax in this archaeological speech that he's going to make. Mm-hmm. You see, Picard is getting wistful. He is about to make a speech to a bunch of archaeologists. Archaeology, the adventure of archaeology, was something that he was always interested in but never got to do. He chose the path of diplomacy rather than the path of adventure. And now he's, kind of mired in that.
So I'm a little confused here. They've gone to a planet where they don't allow outsiders to visit the ruins, yet they're just going to park their ship in orbit and have the archaeological conference there instead. That's kind of like me protesting outside your house a little bit, don't you think?
It's only the ruins they can't go in. I think the planet's open.
Okay.
And I think that the people that live on the planet can visit the ruins and also issue reports. And speaking of Captain's Holiday, it's the Jamaharan statue.
Is it?
Spotlight on Picard's table. Yep.
On the table, not on the bookcase. Oh yeah, there it is. Look at that. It's next to the audition couch. So he picks it up. He's thinking of good memories. And just like rubbing a genie, there she is. Rubbing a lamp.
And they never get into this, how Vash got into his quarters or even onto the ship.
I think that kind of adds to the mystery. She just kind of breaks in. Honestly, I think it would have been more intriguing to introduce Vash in this episode and then have Captain's Holiday.
You mean as a flashback?
Or something like that. So it's not unusual in Star Trek for characters to just appear with that you've never met, and they have tons of history with said individual. So what would be wrong with Picard catching up with an old girlfriend at this archaeological conference? And then they do their thing. Mm-hmm.
He's done many times before. But because she's met him since he's been captain of the Enterprise, unlike Philippa Lavoie from Measure of a Man, and what's her face, Michelle Phillips from the episode where he left her in Paris. Yes. There is some context that's needed. Although what's interesting is that we find out, although we didn't see it in Captain's Holiday, he told Vash all about the Enterprise crew. All the dirty details. He did an impression of Riker, talked to her about Beverly, the whole Megillah, which we saw none of.
No.
We just saw them, camping and being awkward, but apparently he got comfortable enough with Vash to tell her about how much he enjoys the company of the crew of his ship, which is super important, because I think if he hadn't done that, if that wasn't on his mind, what Q does for him in this episode would be very different.
I'm going to say that Q really looks out for Picard.
Yes.
But I wanted to finish my thought. So if we had Captain's Holiday after this episode, then you wouldn't need to worry about the awkward introduction. Vash could just say, hey, I'm going on a dig. You're on vacation. Let's pool our resources. And I think he'd be more happy to put on his Indiana Jones hat rather than grumpy intellectual trying to read his book on a sex planet.
This is the post-coital breakfast. She does not handle well. It's gotta suck to be the kind of a guy that tenses up after sex rather than relaxes after sex.
Yeah.
It's probably why he doesn't have a lot of sex on this show.
You never know. You never know. Uh-oh. Now it's the other woman. Look at that. Look at the surprise on his face. Like,
Oh yeah, Beverly sometimes comes over for tea. Fix the shirt.
Who's that?
Yeah.
A younger, prettier lady? Jean-Luc, what is going on here? Now we just need Cisco to kind of beam in for some random reason and punch somebody.
Cisco, did you notice the name of the writer on this one?
No, I didn't. Who is it?
Stephen Bear.
No, yeah, that's right. I forgot to do my intro. I was talking right over it. Yeah,
he's our main DS9 guy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it explains why I like this episode. It was also directed by Cliff Boyle. Dennis McCarthy did the music, and Marvin Rush did the cinematography. By the way, it's April 22nd, 1991, in case anybody noted. Now, back to the episode. So, girlfriends meet.
Yes.
And they don't know about each other. And Picard looks very vulnerable.
I think that there are two ways to read what's going on here. One is that Gates is like, I thought he liked me exclusively. But the other way is that Gates is like, oh, there actually is a way that I could get him to open up and be in a romantic relationship with me instead of this kind of formal, let's have breakfast together and dance around the issue thing. Let's see if I can get Vash to open up to me about what excites the captain. Honestly, and Picard doesn't like either of those options. He likes his relationship that he has with Beverly just fine.
Honestly, I think this whole ship practices kitchen table polyamory. Like they have all their relationships, like their dedicated primary relationships on the ship, and then when someone from the past comes by, they date for that episode and then they move on. Yeah. You see that a lot with a lot of characters when an old fling just breezes in from nowhere.
And Riker is just on her like a missile.
Excuse me, have you ever heard of sloppy seconds?
Yeah. You know what's funny is I imagine that Picard probably started talking about Riker because she was saying that, his approach was so timid. And he's like, well, I could be like my first officer and here's what he would have done. And she's like, oh, yeah, that is corny.
Now, how old is Captain Picard supposed to be right now?
He plays about 10 years older than he is in real life. So he's supposed to be in his early 60s.
I thought he was like 40 when he started the show, right?
No, he was in his late 40s. He was like 46, 47.
Because when I'm just looking at the age of Vash and Gates McFadden, it's like they're a little younger, so they could actually kind of appropriately bridge the dating gap between Riker and Picard when you're looking at the comparison of ages. Oh, there's Worf. Shoulder into the grindstone. Pushes
he should be more mad about that she got into the captain's quarters somehow than the first officer brought her on deck.
Mm-hmm. Why did they walk completely past Worf first when he was the closest?
Because he got all shifty and moved out of the way. He's like, the other two, Geordi and Data, are going to be a softer sell than Worf is.
Here's what I don't get. We do tons of tours all the time of just special guests, and Worf never calls them out like she didn't get authorization to come onto the bridge, which is to call the first officer out on that. You think that someone walking into with the first officer be like, he's with me. You don't need to challenge this. Now, if it was like Wesley, or maybe just some junior officer that happens to have a duty shift that day, yeah, you want to ask the boss. She's getting a little intimate, cuddling up in his chair.
Which was super cute.
Yeah, Picard feels super vulnerable. He does not like his personal life mixing with his private life.
Not a bit.
So, going into social cowardice, how does this play in your theory?
Um, he doesn't want to talk with his crewmates about her. I mean, that's about it. That's about it. I mean, I in my head canon, they had sex when she came into his quarters. It was the next morning, and they were having tea. They
Yes.
made out, and they moved on to sleeping together.
Hey, that's the same jewelry Vash tried to sell on Deep Space Nine during the
Yep.
during that
We should
weird
cover
episode.
that episode when it comes up, because it was
Oh,
on at the same time as Next Generation. It was not a good episode, but it is sort of a sequel to this.
it was
But this is the thing:
absolutely
is
wretched.
she's getting told by all these people that know him a lot better than she does how private he is. But apparently, on their trip to find that alien artifact, he was not private. Like, he opened up about everybody on the ship. So she assumed that he'd go back up there and be like, "Hey, I met the hottest woman ever on Ryza, and all this great stuff happened." Although I would think that there would be like a Vegas rule about Ryza.
Yeah,
What happens
what
on
happens
Ryza
there?
stays on Ryza.
Exactly. But honestly, Vash is a little upset about this. She wants to be a part of his life. It's not just I'm going to take advantage of this hot dude. It's Picard is more than a conduit into a theft opportunity. There's a relationship there. So I would be a little upset too. Oh, here we go. It's wonderful. It's Q.
Now, John Delancey, I just recently learned, is not a hugger at all.
Oh
He's
yeah.
saying to Picard, how about a big hug? But doesn't move to try to hug Picard. I think Patrick Stewart is a hugger. That's like, I've seen him hug quite a few times.
Oh, I've seen Delancey in fan meet and greets where people will want to hug him. He goes, "No, I don't do that."
Yeah, yeah. But so Q has shown up to give Picard a reward for helping him get back into the Q continuum. Because the last time we saw Q, he had been made human. Now he is going to offer Picard at first anything that he wants. Picard just is not going to take him up on that. So Q is going to give Picard what he needs instead.
A social kick in the butt.
Yep.
Wow. Huh. Now that's an interesting segue to another episode. Q pretty much said I would have taken my own life if it weren't for you, which reminds me of a Voyager episode where there was a Q who wanted to kill himself. Do you recall that?
I do. I'm still slowly making my way through Voyager, almost the end of season 1. I watch one a week until New Trek comes back.
Some really good memes came out of this episode.
So Q's like, "Look, this speech that you're writing, this is like the nth degree of what you don't want to do. Like, you do want to be like Vash was doing, and actually be on an archaeological expedition, not talking about one." Now he's got his pith helmet and knee socks.
He looks like a zookeeper. He didn't button his breast pockets. Man, sloppy. I love how he always wants to go back to these really heathenistic, anarchic periods of human history where there's a lot of death and orgies.
Well, true hedonism does not involve a lot of death.
True.
But yeah, he does kind of have to take Picard to the Dark Ages when he does his Robin Hood thing. Which, that's a movie that I'd like to do a commentary on, 1991's Robin Hood. So Picard's put out the warning. Q's on the ship. Let everybody know weird stuff's going to happen.
Voyager did it really well where Janeway just told the crew, hey, Q's here, be careful. And then you actually get to see the crew kind of rebuffing Q's like, stop bothering the captain. Just do what you need to do and get out of here. He's so embarrassed to be seen in the hallway.
I know.
He could have just beamed in there.
I don't know if you can beam into somebody's quarters. I've never seen that happen. I think they have now we have it with the future tech where you can just beam anywhere, but I think you had to have a transporter pad on either pointed at a planet or have like it go from pad to pad. Yeah, the rules of the transporter are super bizarre.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of those, it's kind of like the hypo spray. It just works and we make
it's a magic off button. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she's planning another heist into the forbidden archaeological thingamajiggers on the planet of Tadagu or whatever it's called. The non-important plot device.
Yep.
So the original idea of this episode was to have a love triangle between Picard, Vash, and Q. Huh. And then they thought, oh, let's do Camelot. And then from what I understand, Ira Stephen Bear thought Camelot was boring, so they switched it to Sherwood Forest. Because I guess Robin Hood was really popular at the time. That's when the Robin Hood, the Kevin Costner Robin Hood Prince of Thieves came out. But I would have much rather seen yes, we're men in tights.
Well, that was a parody of that movie.
Yes, and Patrick Stewart was in that movie.
Yes, he was playing the Sean Connery part.
So Picard just chewed her out for planning a mission. Oh, and there's peeping Tom Q looking through the... Is he John Q. Public then?
There's Picard in his, call those James Bond pajamas.
Who sleeps on one side of the bed like that when they're by themselves?
I do.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected.
I was always used to sleeping on a twin bed, so I typically sleep, even though I have a big bed now, I sleep on one side of it.
I absolutely love that this isn't the only episode where Q and Jean-Luc are in a bed together.
No, and it opened the door for Magneto and Professor X to be in bed together.
Yep. Well, honestly, I want to say that these two, I don't know how to say it. I almost want to say there's an adversarial friendship there.
Yeah.
Almost like maybe not as intense as Quark and Odo, but it's like the enemies, frenemies. There we go. Where Picard just does not want to have anything to do with Q, but Q shows up, and the reason why he's giving so much attention to Picard is that's the closest thing he has to a friend, and he knows it.
Because there's two Qs. There's Cosmic Q and there's Prankster Q, and he's going to kind of do both in this episode. Be both Cosmic and Prankster. He'd be a little bit puckish.
Yeah. So this wouldn't make very much sense to viewers at the time back in the 90s, but I think it would make a lot of sense now if we had Q interact with the Enterprise crew in a non-linear fashion. So every time we see Q, he always references the last time they met and the things that happened. Well, if you watch Doctor Who, sometimes the Doctor will meet people that he's already met, but he hasn't met yet.
Yeah.
And so like he'll come into a situation and they know who he is. He's like, oh, you must have dealt with a future self of me or something like that. So it would be kind of neat where Q would be at a disadvantage because he's shifting around, and though his knowledge is omnipotent, the knowledge of the Enterprise crew is linear, and so he has to accommodate for that, more or less, having to explain himself sometimes who he is, and other times where they have to explain to him what's going to happen in Q's future. That makes sense.
In the beta canon of Star Trek and the novels, right before this, there was a book called Q in Law, which was actually written after this episode, but takes place before it, where Q and Waxana have a relationship. Which is actually a pretty good book.
Oh, here's the few comical parts of TNG.
Well, there's more than a few. I guess we're going to get back to that in Strange New Worlds, where they'll be able to do straight up comedy episodes, which I'm excited for. and then Data raises his hand. He's got a drumstick in it.
Why is everybody? What the heck? There he is.
It's Robin Hood time, and they could have just done this with Picard and Vash, and honestly, it would have made even more sense to do it with a Vash proxy.
Yes.
Not have it actually be Vash, and it also would have been fun to instead of it being Vash that he has to rescue, to make it be Crusher that he has to rescue and have Vash be one of the Merry Men.
Mm-hmm.
Or have Crusher have played the nurse character, which she would have been excellent at.
Yeah, she would, because the nurse is kind of like, she just wants to look out for Maid Marian. She doesn't really have an agenda one way or the other.
But everybody here is just themselves in their costumes. We all laughed when we first heard Worf say that he protested that he's not a merry man. He has the silliest of the costumes. But
he really does. He looks good in red.
Troy's looking real good though.
Yes, she is. I love her hat.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes someone riding a horse.
Q's going to show up to explain to everybody what the deal is with what's going on. First, we get Guy of Gisborne, though.
Oh, Worf.
And Worf is apparently he's never seen a sword before. Runs in with it over his head, completely open to any body shots that this guy wants to lay on him.
Worf just wants to use everything like an axe. Actually, he used the sword like the Batleth when you think about it. Because the Batleth has a lot of chopping actions, but that's pretty much the only move you can do with that weapon.
Yeah, not how you use the kind of sword he had.
So the sheriff is sending out his archers into the woods, which...
Well, this isn't the sheriff yet.
No.
That's Guy of Gisborne. What's his name? Q's the sheriff when Q shows up and explains the rules.
Oh, thank you, Doctor.
Doctor with this gigundous bandage. Just like, okay, prop comedy.
Where did we get this? There he is.
Look at my cool horse. You can call me the High Sheriff of Nottingham. I have the least silly costume. By the way, nice beard. Did your Q make it for you? So he's like, yeah, it's a game. If you don't play, you have to accept the consequences. And the consequence is actual Vash is going to actually die.
Oh.
If you don't play. And Data's super familiar with Robin Hood.
Yeah. I tell you, the further in future we get, apparently the more versed we are with the classic literature. Yeah,
it's interesting that they really hold to all this old-timey stuff.
It's better that than like Days of Our Lives, or you'd imagine if the Keeping Up with the Kardashians was considered classic literature in 500 years from now.
Well, what's interesting is that I think technically Keeping Up with the Kardashians didn't happen in the Star Trek universe because we were recovering from the eugenics wars.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. Would you rather be on that show or be in a eugenics war?
Star Trek history and real history are only similar up until the 1990s.
Yeah. Right about now, we should have those weird homeless, jobless internment camps that we saw in DS9. That happens, I think, this year?
Coming up.
In a couple of years?
Coming up, the Bell riots.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful shot. I wonder which castle they used.
Yeah, me too.
I bet
obviously the interior must have been, and yes, I am stealing this thought from The Greatest Generation. They must have just heard of there was a really good castle set that was going to get torn down, and they're like, yeah, if you want to move production to Next Generation there, shoot it in a castle.
Yeah, well,
you can, because it's like the costumes are pretty good in this too.
Well, the outdoor shooting all was done in one day in this place called the Descanso Gardens, northeast of Los Angeles, by Glendale of all places. Look at that. Oh boy! Now, I think she adapts a lot quicker than the Enterprise crew.
Yep.
Angry lady slap. I'm gonna burn your skull in with my eyeballs.
Execution, but wait.
That's just a phrase you don't hear anymore. He's gone mad. Like madness and crazy. Now it's insane.
Yeah, which is still kind of politically incorrect.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. We're recording this about 3-4 days before it releases. You think that's a fast turnaround? They filmed this. Oh, where was it? They filmed this just a couple of months before it aired. So they filmed this on February 6th, 1991, the week of the 6th to the 15th. And then they inserted more shots on April 10th, and then it aired on April 22nd. There goes that mandolin.
I love that.
So that is a reference to Animal House, I believe. I don't know how or why, but that's the rumor. So I've got to go back and watch Animal House now.
Oh, Animal House is not good. It's a classic, but it is not good.
What is Troy doing shooting androids?
She's trying to shoot the tree.
Oh, it'd be so funny if this oil started spurting out of his arrow wound.
It's like, you didn't know this because why would you? I have a death button, which you have hit.
She just looks mortified. Like, how could you be so macabre?
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Frakes. Actually, this will be a really easy episode to shoot because there are not a lot of scene changes. There's only about 3 or 4 sets for the Sherwood Forest scene when you think about it. So they probably got everything filmed in one day.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's Picard who has snuck into Guy's castle.
Could you
just want to check and see how sharp that axe you're sharpening is? Not sharp enough.
Mm-hmm. Now, where this plane exists, where the Q sets up their fantasy lands, are they in the continuum right now? Are they just in another realm of reality to make this forest thing work?
It's like, it's basically, it's the holodeck, except people can actually die. And Q doesn't control Guy of Gisborne either. He actually has to make suggestions to him and things. So Guy is an NPC that has a life of its own.
So
Oh.
he's role playing too. I find that really interesting that he role plays in these little adventures. In the past, he would just kind of watch from the distance.
Yeah.
Remember the first time we met him? No, the second time we met him, where they had those weird animal things from the French army.
Yeah, that was bizarre. Animal things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this part I don't have a lot to say about other than Clive Revel as Guy of Gisborne is good and Vash is good. Now, do you remember when you first saw this episode? Did you watch it when it aired?
You know, I don't remember watching it when it came out, but I was aware of it. I thought it was just a little strange at the time.
My 9-year-old. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My 9-year-old self was very, very excited to see Star Trek do Robin Hood. And I remember telling my babysitter at the time that, that I was into Star Trek. And she was like, oh, yeah, all of my friends at school are really into that show. And, we all have nicknames. And, this one guy is Worf. And I told her about the line about, because in the preview they have him, doing the I protest, I am not a merry man. And she just thought that was the funniest thing ever. And that was, why I saw Star Trek The Next Generation is so ubiquitous. It was like everybody I talked to knew about it. And it was truly an all ages show. I don't know that we can say that about New Trek anymore. Because all there was the movies and the original series, which you didn't need to know everything about to watch them.
Yes.
I don't know that a kid could just that a 9-year-old kid could sit down and watch new Star Trek without it being explained to them, everything that was going on.
Oh, you could do that with an adult. I remember sitting down and getting Jem in the middle of season 2 of Discovery, and I had to kind of catch her up with all the back history. And it's like, we got to start from the beginning if you really want to get into this.
And I assume she decided she did not really want to get into it.
Oh, no, well, she's watched a few episodes and she's intrigued, but it's a huge time commitment now because 3 seasons have gone by?
Yeah.
And
I've seen season 1 of Discovery all the way through 3 times. Mm-hmm. Season 2 of Discovery just once, and season 3 just once. I really liked the 3rd and 1st seasons of Discovery quite a bit, actually, but I will probably be watching seasons 2 and 3 again once I've got a friend that comes over and we watch Enterprise. And when we're done with that, we'll probably move on to Discovery.
Well, there we go. She just turned him in. I don't understand why she did this. Probably just to save his life.
It's to change the story.
Okay. Interestingly enough, this is the last episode we see Vash in for Next Gen, which it's one of those. It's kind of like the new No Soup for You guy in Seinfeld. Is that he was only in one episode and he was only had about 5 minutes of screen time, but your memory says like he was there all the time. Vash
I guess so.
The same way.
That was my other thing I was going to say about Vash is that I knew that I had not seen Captain's Holiday when I first saw this, and so like you said, this would have been the better episode to introduce her in. Mm-hmm. As far as I was concerned, this was the episode they introduced her in. I didn't know there actually was another Vash episode. Same with Minuet in Future Imperfect.
Yes.
I didn't know there was another Minuet episode.
You're right. Crusher would have played the perfect role.
Yeah, and she would have done it just like this.
And they would have been able to kind of have side talk about Picard and maybe a little bit of jealousy going on there.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And the other thing is we could have added the whole, they all show up there and Picard would have been like, where's Beverly? Well, she's probably still on the Enterprise. Be that as it may, she might be here. You've got this whole time that Q is doing this, O'Brien's running a tavern like down the street. That's where he was supposed to take Vash before she turned him in, and O'Brien was going to help him, and he's just hanging out there serving drinks to all these louts.
Oh,
like, wonder what's going on. I should be running the transporter.
Oh,
Barkley's going around with the bring out your dead cart.
Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Yeah, that's who it was. King Richard. That's who Patrick Stewart played.
Yes.
In Men in Tights. Yeah.
Yep.
When you're saying Sean Connery, I'm like, what was the name of that character? I can't think of it.
He played King Richard in Prince of Thieves. Now all of our crew members are dressed up as.
So this guy here who's playing Sir Guy, the redhead with the curly hair.
Yes, Clive Revel.
So he was the voice of Emperor Palpatine in The Empire Strikes Back.
Nice.
Yeah, not the body, but the voice, which I didn't know. I thought it was the same dude.
No, the body was so they hadn't cast Ian
McDermott or
McDermott. Ian McDermott had not been cast until Return of the Jedi. So in the original cut of that movie, it is just monkey eyes projected on a blank face. And now, because everything gets re-edited and re-edited again, I think when they did the special editions, they put Ian McDermott in there.
I caught an edit in Voyager this morning that I had never seen before. So, in the Voyager episode where they meet with all the Kazon Mages and the Trabe, and there's a part in the conference room, and they introduce people coming in. And the original shooting of this, each Maj would come in and you'd hear a little fanfare, da, 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 and some random crowd clapping and cheering. And then when Maj Kala comes in, there's tons of fanfare and people screaming, but it's just a conference room. Like, where are all these people? And I thought it was the strangest thing. And that was in there for years. And then I watched that episode this morning, and lo and behold, it was not in there. They went back and rescored that one scene. I found it very odd. So now they went straight to chopping off Picard's head. Data threw a component of himself in the fire, and kaboom! Now here's
witchcraft.
Now here's something very interesting to know about this fight scene. Marina and Gates are the only two people in this scene, or in this whole episode, who are classically trained in fencing and sword fighting, yet they were not allowed to use swords. Only men were allowed to fight with swords here in this episode.
And this is all a Princess Bride gag here, where
totally.
Picard does the whole I have something to tell you. I'm not from Nottingham. Yeah.
Yeah, you did it. You smashed his head. Yeah, the way this is shot shot like a lot of those low budget Robin Hood movies or middle-aged movies. I love it.
Yep.
There's Q just
Riker's got his bow staff. Yep. It's like the thing was, all of the food was real. It wasn't replicated. So I hope you got something to eat. If you're going to get back to eating, repurposed human waste.
Ew. So during the filming of this episode, Jonathan Frakes actually got his eye cut during one of the fight scenes by a sword, and they had to take him to hospital.
Oh man!
Still in costume too.
You boys playing Robin Hood, that's how you get your eye cut. Should go back to being Star Trek.
Oh, so he got... I don't even understand why this ends the scenario. So he escapes execution and makes it to the castle tower and rescues the woman.
So here's where we get the why they did this. You have to use paid Picard if you learned how weak and vulnerable you really are. If you finally see how love has brought out the worst in you. And she's like, no, Q. It brought out the best in him. Nobility, courage, self-sacrifice. This is the stuff he wants to be doing. And Q's like, I know, lady. He's supposed to figure that out. I'm saying the opposite so that he could argue with me. But he's like, you get it. You get it. You and me are going to travel around the galaxy together.
Wait, Vash was a council member? I thought she was a freaking
she said
outlaw.
Unofficially she was a council member.
Wow. So we don't know what
couch in his dress uniform.
Yeah, we don't know what happened to the conference. People just kind of left. Oh, there she is. Oh, this is where she runs off with Q. Okay. Yep. I'm connecting the dots. It's been a really long time since I've seen this episode.
It's right about one thing, as ridiculous as it was, this game did prove that you still care. Like deep down you want to, you do want to be Mr. Action, and you're just choosing not to be. Just be who you want to be.
Actually, he's got some very nice contentment in his eyes there. Picard is happy that she's off having fun.
Yeah. Yep. As long as he's not responsible for her happiness and she's still happy, it's a pretty good deal for him.
John Delancey is very charismatic.
Yes, he is.
Their personalities are a little aligned, I'll tell you that.
Poor Picard, he's like, you don't want to be with John Delancey. He's not vanilla. You want to be the vanilla guy. Vanilla.
Oh.
Like, you got to guarantee her safety.
John Delancey did ask the writers to give Q a little bit more of an aggressive or not so much of aggressive, but more of a bite to use his language with the Q character moving forward. Before he was just kind of uninvolved and passively cruel, and now he's very more intimate and cunning and manipulative. Oh, there we go. He's happy. He doesn't look uncomfortable. She smiles. I wonder if they had to actually gray Picard's hair there. Like, I wonder if his natural hair color was still kind of brown. There she goes. And there's the look of satisfaction.
Yep.
Some say love, it is a river.
So I actually give this one 3 stars just because it foretells the fact that Picard will continue to fight past the period where he's out of Starfleet.
Yeah.
He's going to be, he is going to be this adventure guy. He is going to be kind of this kiss the girls guy. And he's going to, he is going to sacrifice things for it.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about this in our next episode. We talk about the drumhead. Starfleet turned inward and Picard went outward. Picard continued to go out.
All right.
And try to make connections with other races.
And that's kind of what we've always wanted Picard to do. So the Picard that I want to the Picard that I want to get to know, the one that I'd like to think he exists, is the kind of the one that we see now in the recent Picard series, and you can kind of see elements of that in Next Gen, is that he's looking beyond the bureaucracy and he's looking at the humanity of the situation. Mm-hmm. And he wants to extract as much pleasure and experience out of the moment as appropriately possible. And like you see that in this episode that we just watched. And it really is a stunning break from our conservative, imperialistic old man Picard that we see in the first season. Where he's a little bit more of a swashbuckler. He's got more energy. He cares. He loves. He fights. And so it's a good direction for him. I think that's why I want to give this maybe a 4 or even a 5, because it sounds like they just had fun.
Yep.
If I was on the crew and someone said, "Hey, we're doing Sherwood Forest," I'm like, "What? Yes, please. I want to be Little John."
I could definitely see you being Little John.
Oh, it would be great. Okay.
I could also imagine you as Guy of Gisborne.
Ooh, well, I've got the body structure for it. I've got that big round face. I could grow some big poofy curly hair and dye it red. Oh, I could do that. Well, I think this just about wraps up another episode. We want to thank you very much for listening in. And make sure to check out our backlog of episodes and movie reviews. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode, which is Drumhead. So with that, have a good day.
Why am I interviewing you guys?
So you're the guest.
So Sascha, what's a Star Trek
Hi,
Next Generation?
I'm the guest. So Sascha, what is Star Trek Next Generation?
Seek us out at Next Generation's First Generation at iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Music credits include Electric Car by Poddington Bear, Broke for Free, As Colorful as Ever, Wireless, and Telecom by Lee Rosevere. Audio engineering by Sascha Schaudies. Chief Meme Maker and episode cover credit goes to Matthew Kirschner. Logo and graphic art design credit goes to David Clawwitter. And special thanks to Patrick Delmore for working with other podcasts to make sure the good word gets out.
If you'd like to email the show, you can email us at nextgenfirstgenpod@gmail.com. I've been Patrick Delmore.
And this is Sascha Schaudies. Thank you very much for listening and have a wonderful day.
Good night.